a lot of singers, pop singers and groups that would come out just to visit the Mi Amigo or the Galaxy, and they included Denny Lane of the Moody Blues, Gene Pitney, Susan Hampshire, Manfred Mann, Dave Clark and Adam Faith. And on one occasion, on the 19th of September 1965, a young 21-year-old Yorkshire-born singer, whose name is Sylvan Whittingham, I didn't know that name, to be honest, there and then at that particular time, but she came out to promote one of her records, We Don't Belong, it was called, and this had been banned by the BBC. So she thought it would be a good opportunity to come out to the offshore stations and promote it. She turned out to be the first and only Stowaway Girl during the 1964 to 1967 years, and Sylvan takes up the story.
I had travelled out with Richard Swainson, who you'll remember, and I was to be interviewed. I think Roger Gale interviewed me. My manager said to me, "Don't come back." I'll tell you the truth now, Keith. I used to tell another story, but this is the truth. He said, "Don't come back. We'll get some publicity, you know, if you refuse to come back." So I'm afraid, after lunch and my interview, it was quite rough. It was actually quite rough. I wasn't as scared as I made out. Anyway, the tender came back, as you know, after lunch, hooted. I went to the loo, locked the door, and refused to come out. "It's too rough," I was crying. And it hooted about 12 times, like a foghorn, and off it went. It had to go. I think the weather was getting really bad. It had to go. And it wasn't due to come back till Monday. This was Saturday afternoon. So I was marooned. There was a headline, actually, "Marooned with 15 men."
Well, that result is that you've gone down in the annals of time, really, as the first and only Stowaway Girl in the offshore radio history. Did it do you any good, doing that particular visit?
Well, first of all, thank you for being the person who always remembers that I was the only female pop singer, because Mr. Blackburn gets it wrong and he's got me mixed up with Twinkle. Twinkle only came out for the day. Did it do me any good? Well, it didn't do the record any good. Well, I mean, it was a lovely visit and it was a real thrill. I mean, can you imagine in those days the Pirates were like the Beatles? You know, they were absolute superstars. And so to spend a day on Radio Caroline was just... I had to pinch myself when I got home. Did that really happen? But as far as the record was concerned, no, it didn't do the record any good, apart from the wonderful experience and you know, the fact I'm sitting here now 51 years later.
Tomorrow when we're gone, they'll see the reason why we can't go on, believing different things, but knowing that we're right. Goodbye to them that say we're wrong, we don't belong. Until the bitter end. Now the tears are
The title of the record was We Don't Belong, from the Caroline Stowaway Girl, Sylvan, whom I'm hoping to meet up with in London tomorrow. Watch this space. On board Radio Caroline ship, we held what we call an initiation ceremony for all new disc jockeys that used to come on board. We had great fun in those days. We used to take the mickey out of each other, and it was just, it's hard to describe. With a group of people living together in confined space, you couldn't go on land, you couldn't go down to the pub, you couldn't go and watch a film. You was confined to barracks, as it were, for 14 days and 14 nights, and you had to, make some entertainment. So we tend to take the mickey out of each other. But on arrival of a new DJ, they had to go through this, what they call initiation ceremony. I had to go through this in 1964, as did all newcomers. And around Christmas time, a year later, 1965, we were joined by a new DJ who had an accent. He came from the north of England. Hey, now then, Sithy, and all these songs. Well, I can't do an imitation of Day Louis Travis, and he can't do an imitation of me, so I'll just say that the captain of the ship allowed us to do this welcoming gesture. The captain was very much in charge, discipline-wise, but we said, this is going to test if the DJs are going to make it or not, because if they didn't like the initiation ceremony, they'd leave, and quite a lot did. Anyway, Dave arrived, and he met the captain and crew, and he was shown his living quarters, and he joined us for a meal in the evening. The English DJs, American, Australian, we all had sort of dinner at the same time, and then the Dutch crew had their meal, just in one mess, but at separate times. So when Dave came in after the meal, we kept him talking until quite late, when he said, I'm really cream-crackered. I want to go and get some sleep. So about 2 o'clock in the morning, the trap was set. He'd gone to bed. We contacted the captain. I think he'd been to sleep beforehand and woke up, and he rang the Caroline ship's bell. Ding, ding! As soon as you hear a ship's bell, you know that something is about to happen, which meant basically that all of us on board had to stand by the lifeboats. That was very important. I may have mentioned that earlier in the programme, that lifeboat drill was absolutely important, that should something happen, like the ship about to sink, God forbid, we would have to get onto the lifeboat. So all of us had to know what we had to do in those situations. And we would be standing by wherever we were told to go and what would happen next. So let Dave Lee Travis tell the story.
The guy said, come on, quick, we've got to get out of here now, it's a drill. I said, hang on a second, I've got my clothes on, because I was just wearing a pair of underpants, right? And he said, no time, and pushed me out the door, and everybody on the ship was on their way up to the top deck, and as we got to the top of the stairs, the Dutch crew were saying, right, you're over here, you're over there. And this bloke sent me to the highest of the lifeboats and said, right, stand over there by lifeboat number 1, hands on the wheel, stay there till further notice. So, of course, I climbed up the stairs. Now, what you have to remember is, I'm wearing just a pair of underpants. It's the middle of the North Sea. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. It is freezing cold, and I'm already like ice, even before I got to the wheel. I went up there, stood there, held onto the wheel, and my fingers were actually nearly sticking to the metal wheel that released the lifeboat. And I stood there for a few minutes and waiting for further orders, freezing. After about 15 minutes, I decided I would let go, or more likely to the point, prize myself away from this wheel, which I did eventually. And I looked around, I couldn't see anybody. And I was calling, nobody there. So I went back downstairs. I was frozen stiff. I went inside, top deck, inside the mess hall. Nobody there. Went down the stairs back to where the cabins were, and I said, hello. And I heard these muffled laughs coming out of the cabins, and I realised I'd been stitched up. Great fun, and taken in good part, I thought.
Well done, Dave. Yes, we all went through that. Well, those of us who stayed with Caroline, and I don't think Radio London did it, but Caroline certainly did. So those DJs you heard on the radio would have all gone through that same ceremony. A lot of people didn't like it, and they left. But there we are. I joined Caroline South in July 1960.